So a quick update on this external floppy drive that I was trying to get working. I've just got it out of the case at the moment. I've been probing around trying to test things. I've tested the cable, everything on the cable's fine. Tested that switch is fine. It just turns it off, that's all it does. I took the GAL out, there's a GAL here. I took that out and reseated it. And I checked for voltages on this main chip and these two chips here. And I also checked the capacitance on this capacitor here, which is also fine. It all checks out fine. So I haven't really done anything other than test it. And I've reseated the GAL. And I've gone into, well, let me just show you. If I go into the Amiga test kit. For some reason now, when I go to floppy drive, this was crashing before, but it doesn't crash anymore. This is just says, it says DF1 and it's got ID 0. And if I actually do, this is the funny thing. So change it to DF1, this drive. And if I say signal test, which is what I was doing. Now, if I say turn motor on, it doesn't do anything. So turn motor on or off, it doesn't do anything. And if I say step, so press F6 to step, the stepper motor isn't going on this. I know you can't hear it, but it's not doing anything. But if I take a floppy disk and I put it in this drive, it suddenly just comes to life. So now the motor will turn on and off. I can hear it now. If I go back and do a retest, this is reading. It won't do anything unless there's actually a disk in it, which is a bit strange. I don't think that's a thing with the external Amiga floppy, is it? It should be able to turn the motor on and off whether there's a disk in or not, I think. But this is going to read this disk perfectly fine. So it's kind of alive, but there is another problem. So we're in Workbench now. If I put this disk in, into the internal drive, it just comes up uninitialized. Put it in here. Oh, and it's working as uninitialized. I just tried this before and it didn't work. I've got this Octamed V4 disk. I think this is readable. Let's try that. So that's in the internal drive. There you go, Octamed. Let's just try sticking in DF1. So it's accessing. The motor's on. I can hear the stepper motor going. It's not able... Yeah, unreadable. What's happening? Is this because it turns out this is a high density drive. I mean, I think it's just a normal drive, but it's capable of doing high density. And all these chips on here, I think, are to do the high density stuff. It's a power computing high density floppy, it says. So I wonder if there's something about this that's stopping it from working in Workbench. Do you have to have a driver for this or something? Because it's some weird drive? Because it's kind of working, but it just can't read the disk. Maybe the only thing that was stopping it from coming to life was just the fact that there was no disk in. If I boot this with I'm just going to boot the test kit again. DF1. I mean, this was actually crashing before, so this is the bit that doesn't make any sense to me. This didn't work, and now it does. So something's changed, but I'm not sure. And if I do a signal test with a floppy in, it works. I can step it. Is that step? Yeah, the step's working. I can feel it. And let's do head calibration test. So, weirdly, the calibration test is not working. That's coming up with nothing. But when I tried this drive internally in the computer, it worked. But here, it's just not able to read it at all. So that's funny that completely fails, yet the retest, is now failing. Is it because of this disk? I don't know what this disk is. Let me find a different disk. But this Octamed disk is completely readable. If I put the Octamed disk in the internal drive, this is a completely readable disk. Yeah, so that's reading it from the internal drive. That's the same disk. So that disk does work. And then I take the same disk and I put it in DF1. and it's bad. But it's not the drive. The drive's not badly aligned if I do the head calibration test. Because we put it in the computer and it totally worked. So something crazy has gone on there. Anyway, it's not completely dead, but it's not completely alive either.
Well, it just so happens that your friend here is only mostly dead.
I've just noticed as well, I didn't know this was a thing. DF1 there, now it's got a different floppy ID of just AAAA, and it's recognized it as a double-sided high-density drive. It's got DSHD there. So Amiga Test Kit is recognizing this drive for what it is. So is it trying to read it as a high-density drive? And this is not a high-density disk? Well, it is a high-density disk, but it's not formatted as one. Let's do a write test onto this disk. I'm going to overwrite my Amiga Test Kit disk here. Let's do a write test. So it's writing to this disk now. Disk is write protected? No, it's not. So, very strange. Let me boot into Workbench. DF1 uninitialized. Can I format that disk? Let's have a look. Quick format. Well, according to this, it's formatted that. So let's just see if I can copy something onto here, like Octamed. Yeah, so it's going. Maybe you can't hear that, but yeah, this drive appears to be working, but I don't understand what's going on in the Amiga Test Kit. Does the Amiga Test Kit just not understand this high density drive? It seems like it did understand it, but I am very confused as to what's going on here. And now it can't seem to read the disk it's just written. Yeah. So I just wrote that in here and it can't read it anymore. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute, what's going on here? I took the write protect off and it's working. What the devil is that all about? No, now it's working with the write protect on. I don't know. It's just behaving very strangely. I don't understand what it's doing. It's funny as well because this is actually a high density disk. Well, it is, but it's not formatted as one. Can it read this one now? Unreadable. Let's try again. Maybe it's trying to read this as a high density disk because it's got the other notch out. Maybe this was a bad disk to pick. Let me try something else. Unreadable. Okay. That might have been a bad disk to choose. Here we go. Deluxe Paint 4 AGA. Let's just stick this in the main drive. There it is. Deluxe Paint 4 AGA. That works. Let's try it in the external drive. Unreadable. There we go. So it's not completely dead. Oh, now it's got a checksum error. On disk block 882, it's behaving very badly. Oh, replace it. Okay, okay. What? It's just read it. I don't understand. Now it's reading it. That's being read off here. Let's just see if I can launch it off here. There we go. That just launched Deluxe Paint AGA off this disk. Unbelievable. So it kind of works, but it kind of doesn't. I've just written an Amiga Test Kit 1.21 disk and it seems to be Seems to be working in here. I wrote it in the internal drive. And it's working in there. So let's boot this up. Floppy. Yeah, it's not crashed it. See, now it's saying it's double density, not high density. Let's do a signal test. It's working. It's stepping. Head calibration test. Okay, now this is working. Okay, that's working. What is going on with this drive? I've no idea. Retest. Now it's reading. This is a disk I just wrote in the internal drive of this computer. I have really no idea what's going on here. Perhaps it was this Octamed disk, because this is actually a high density disk because it's got that notch there. Perhaps this is confusing it. Yeah, it can't read that. Oh, and now it's come up as high density because I've got that in. Oh, I see. And when I put this in, that's a standard density disk, and do read on that. Yeah, it's now saying it's double density. So it's recognizing this as a high density disk and trying to read it as a high density disk when it's not. It's formatted as a normal density disk. I'd have to put a sticker over there and this would work. So is that what's confused me? So is this now actually just completely working? So this is a double density normal disk formatted. I just formatted it on the internal drive and it's reading fine. I am so confused. I just picked this because I thought this is a good disk. I've actually picked probably the one high density disk that I've got in my whole collection. So let's try this Deluxe Paint 4 disk. It's now fine with that. Is this working now? So I have to be really careful if I do happen to be using a high density disk, but it's obviously formatted as double density like this one is. This drive is going to treat it as high density and is not going to be able to read it at all. And, well, depending on the software, I suppose, but in this case, Amiga Test Kit totally understands this. Or maybe it does, I don't know, because is it understanding what to do here? DSHD. It's very strange. It comes up as a different ID when you put a different disk in. Well, what can I say? For some reason, this is working now, and I really haven't done that much. I mean, initially in the other video, I did push that chip in, and I have reseated that GAL, and I've done a load of testing, but I haven't actually really done anything. The GAL looked fine. It was clean and everything. It's got a double wipe socket. It looked fine. Didn't look like there was anything wrong with it. So maybe in the last video, I just didn't put a disk in, because I thought normally you can turn the motor on without a disk in. But in this one, you obviously can't. Maybe because the drive electronics is saying there's no disk in, so I don't know whether it's double density or high density. So it doesn't turn it on. But then it also was crashing. So really, I have no idea why this is suddenly changed. Maybe it's because I've taken it out of the case. Let me reassemble it back into the case and then see if it's still working. Okay, sorry about the crazy camera angle, but here we are. Let's go for floppy. It's crashing again. I've put it back in the case and it's crashing. Is this thing actually still shorting out on the case? Is that what's happening? Yeah, I think that's what's happening. I've put it back in the case and it doesn't work. Let's go to floppy again, floppy drive, and it's crashed. Right. There's something going on here. Something crazy is going on. Give me a minute. Okay, so I've just taken the plastic housing off, but I haven't changed anything else. And now it's not crashing. What the hell is going on here? Retest. It's totally... Just putting the case on is causing it to short out or something. I wonder if that thing I put down on the bottom, I did test that it's actually not conductive. I wonder if the pins are just stabbing through that anyway. It needs something more sturdy on the bottom. I think it's just shorting out. That's totally working. Just not when I put the case on. So all I've changed here is I've just taken the plastic case off. It's still sitting in the metal housing, but it's not all squished together like a sandwich. It's a lot of pressure on the top. That is absolutely crazy. Right, let me find something more substantial to jam in underneath here, because I think it's just got to be shorting out on the case. I'm just going to stuff this piece of card in underneath the circuit board. I've cut a piece of cardboard out here. I'm just going to stuff it in under here. So I have measured this like conductive bag that I've put in under here. I have measured it to see that it's not conductive. It doesn't appear to be conducting. We've got one of these anti-static bags. I don't think these are... Oh yeah, I thought they might be conductive, but it's not. It's not conducting. So I'm going to stick that under there. But I reckon it might be stabbing right through it. So let's see if it can stab through that card. So that goes a little bit under the floppy drive as well, but that should stay in place. So I've put just a piece of... I've cut the back off a manual and just put that in there. So let me just put the case back on and then we'll try this again. Oh, actually, let me just test it with the case off. Okay, so that's reading out of there and it's fine, as before. Right, let's put the case back on. This drive is such an oddity. So it's just the fact that it's this weird high density drive, I think, is what's causing all the problems. Right. And let's see, those wires there are very close to the case, but they've got to be that close, I think. Because one of the other problems it's got is that if you did happen to be unscrewing these and they came off, it would just flop down. The board would just flop down and short out. And it's not crashed. Oh, but then again, I haven't got a disc in. So let's stick this disc in here. Change to DF1. Retest. And it's working. So it's just unbelievable. So the very first thing I noticed with this drive when I took it apart, and it's in the video I did, is that it looked like that circuit board could short out onto the case, and it looks like that's exactly what it was doing. And somebody did point out in the comments saying, you've used a conductive bag. You've used a conductive bag to insulate it. And I'm like, I knew they were conductive, but I put my multimeter on it and I couldn't get a reading out of it. So I thought, well, it's not conductive enough to make any difference. But apparently it is. Either that or it's actually stabbing right through it into the case anyway. When it pushes down, the pins might be stabbing through that actual bag. Can't believe it did that. And that is working. And then the other oddity is that if this drive doesn't have a disk in, it doesn't respond. So that's the other part that's a bit weird. So if I take this disk out and then do signal test, oh, now it does work. But it's not stepping. It did something, but now it's not doing anything there. So it needs a disk in to know what to do. And then if you happen to put a high density disk in, then it's going to treat it like a high density disk. And if it's not formatted as one, then it's going to do this. Yeah, so this is a high density disk, but it's formatted as double density and it doesn't know what to do with it. So that's the other confusing thing. Oh my word, I can't believe it. So this thing is totally working now. So I don't really know what really happened there. Is it just shorted out? The very first thing I noticed was the problem with it, was that the board would short out. And then I basically then went and put what I knew was the conductive bag underneath, but I put my multimeter on it and went, well, it doesn't conduct very much. And then you put the case on and it was shorting out all along. That is just absolutely bonkers. I can't believe it. Anyway, this drive is now fixed. I can't. It's quite a bad design. Whatever's going on in there, that is quite a bad design, because that board is being pushed down at an angle. It's not a good design at all. If you accidentally undo one of the nuts off the back, the board would just flop down and that's it. So it's surprising it's not killed the drive, but it also did have that chip that was popped out. So yeah, there we go. That is, what happens if I boot up with a disk in DF1? Does it even attempt to read it? It did. It's not going to boot from it though. But it did recognize that it was there. There it is, Amiga test kit 1.1. Can I run it from in Workbench as well? Yeah, I can. It's working. It's absolutely working. Whoops, wrong drive. Well, there we go. It's fixed, and it was shorting out. I can't believe it. Anyway, I've got a working external floppy drive, which I bought as broken for about £20. So in the end, this did turn out to be a bargain. It's a bit scummy on the outside, but really doesn't make any difference at this point. It's fully functional, and it's also a high density drive as well. Crazy, a completely useless thing on the Amiga, but that's what it is. So thanks for all the suggestions from people of what to check. I did check some of those things that you suggested. I checked well, I didn't check the GAL, but I did reseat the GAL. I checked the cable and some other stuff. And whoever said, you've put a conductive bag in. Well, I should have put something else in. You were right. I'll put your comment on the screen here. So thanks for the suggestion. And yeah, there it is. Works.